everyone. Welcome to week 8 of your Advanced Computers 2 course. This week we are beginning chapter 4, which is on Excel data sets and tables, which I think you'll find if you are taking the Word class in conjunction with this one, you're going to find a lot of similarities between these two topics and these two sections. So I think you're going to find this to make it maybe even a little bit easier to do both of the materials. This week we are going to cover several different topics. We are going to go up through slide 18 in this particular slide deck. So the objectives that we're going to be covering in this week are the section on freezing rows and columns, printing large data sets, designing and creating tables, and applying a table style. The rest of the objectives we'll be covering next week. So let's look first at a data set. When we're looking at a large group of data, it can be very difficult to read and to follow along. So what they're going to walk you through first is a way to make that a little bit easier. And one of the ways that we can do that is by doing what we call freezing rows and columns. So what this does is it allows us to keep headers and things like that, like labels, so that as we're scrolling up and down or left and right, we can still see what we're looking at. What is this particular column about? Is it sales? Is it fees earned? What exactly is this column representing? And so being able to freeze rows and columns is a great way to keep those headers and so that you can actually read the data and understand it as you're looking through the data set. So this is kind of just showing you what that will do. If you do it wrong, not a big deal. You can actually unlock the rows and redo it, reset it to be a different place. But you can see how it's allowing you to scroll, but you're keeping different horizontal and vertical lines so that you've always got those at the top, up in the upper left. Basically, you'll have the certain things that are going to always stay the same. Then that way you're able to read everything a little bit more. So that is if you're actually looking at the data on the screen. Now, what if we need to print a data set that's huge? And this talks a little bit about that. So how do we print a large data set? We want to first be able to do a page layout. So we want to decide what we want it to look like. Are there certain titles that we want to show up on every page? Do we want the page to break at a certain point? Do we need a certain area on that page? So all of those things are things that we have to keep in mind when we're printing these large data sets. The page break is going to actually indicate where the data is going to start on the next page. So, you might want to, make a specific break at the end of, a group of letters maybe. Maybe we're doing alphabetical and we want to, at the end of the letter D, we want to stop regardless of if we're at the bottom of the page or not, something like that. So that's what the page breaks are all about. So they're going to walk you through how to do that, how to set a print area. And then, of course, those print titles are very important. A lot of times we want to keep the title on the very top of the document, and we want it to reprint on every single page so that we know what we're looking at as we page through the actual hard copy of the document. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about print titles. Now, when they go into this next section, it's all about how to create a table, to actually structure the table. So things like, being able to put a filter on, or, being able to freeze panes or freeze titles, things like that are going to be covered in here. And then designing, being able to know what is a field, what is a record. So a field is an individual piece of data, so maybe it's a sales amount. But a record would be everything for that particular facility or location. So it would have not just their name, but it would have things like their address, who's the salesperson associated with that account, along with their sales data, things like that. So all of that information in a row across the table would be considered a record. It's very important also to remember to not put blank rows in the table. That will affect your ability to do filtering and things like that. So you don't want to ever have a blank row. They're going to go through and talk about how to actually create that table, as well as how to handle the design around it. So just like we talked about in the Word course when we talked about the creating a table, there are different ways to make the table look nice, how we want it to look, what kind of style do we want it to have. And then of course they're going to go through and talk a little bit about how to add records, because just because you have all the information there doesn't mean you're not going to eventually have more information, right? We might need to add some things. So they're going to talk then also about how to edit and delete records as well. So all of those things kind of go hand in hand. So as you're going through this week's material, if you run across any problems or questions, please make sure that you reach out to me, and have a great week.